Disney villains are oddly beloved for a bunch of bad guys. They're basically their own brand at this point, and I honestly love it. I got a suggestion from this lovely viewer to do a ranking on this topic, so I thought it's only fitting that I do a top 10 Disney villains ranking on this channel. Let's get into it. This is one of the more difficult rankings I've had to make. There are just so many excellent Disney villains. From design to voice work to songs, motives, actions, charisma, and just pure evilness, there is so much to consider when crafting a villain ranking. But I ended up just going with my gut most of the time. That of course means that my list will probably look very different from yours, so if that's the case, leave a comment telling me your own villain ranking. I'm very curious to hear everyone's opinions. Honorable mentions are almost pointless in this case because the number of great Disney villains is so high, but the exclusions from my list that hurt the most were Jafar and Chernabog. Just know that I love them, but they were slightly edged out. Now let's start the list. I don't think anyone has ever rooted for Cruella. This isn't a villain looking to take over the world or gain some great power. She's simply a fashionista looking for her next exciting piece. Unfortunately, she has a deep love of authentic fur coats, and so she sets her sights on Roger and Anita's Dalmatian puppies. Despicable as she is, Cruella wins me over mostly in her design. Legendary Disney animator Mark Davis hit a stroke of genius when he opted to have Cruella's form be so bony and thin. She looks like a walking skeleton at times, and her massive fur coat almost consumes her. It's like a visual representation of how her desire for the Dalmatian furs has completely taken over her life. And few Disney villain designs are more iconic than that instantly recognizable split black and white hair. Betty Lou Gerson provided a brilliant voice performance to bring Cruella to life. My favorite scenes with Cruella are the ones during the car chase at the movie's climax. She goes off the rails, figuratively and literally, and animators did not hold back showing just how manic she'd become. Cruella is also one of only a select group of Disney villains to have their own theme song. I thoroughly enjoy that her residence is called Hell Hall, very self-aware. For essentially being named Cruel Devil, I'd say she lives up to her name. I don't really have a ton to say about the Horned King, other than that, in my opinion, he's the single most terrifying Disney villain. We don't even get to learn much about his origin or his abilities, but his motive to find the Black Cauldron and raise the undead army of the Cauldronborn is pretty scary. It's odd that Disney decided to go this dark, but I do find myself enjoying it a lot. These sequences are just awesome. I feel a bit similarly about the Horned King as I do with Chernabog. They're both extremely evil antagonists with a great presence and creepy design. But what hurts Chernabog is that he's only in one short segment of Fantasia. The Horned King gets a whole movie. He has a frightening voice and a fairly simple yet effective design. Those red eyes sure stand out. Again, not a ton to discuss, but seeing as very few Disney villains can send a true shiver down my spine, I think that's worth ranking in the top 10. Along with Governor Ratcliffe, Frollo is probably the most despicable of the villains. He's quite frightening because he believes himself to be a righteous man, and he uses his religion to justify some incredibly heinous acts. He kills Quasimodo's mother and was going to kill baby Quasimodo as well. The only reason he didn't was because he didn't want God to be displeased with him. Frollo doesn't want to be a good person. He simply wants to be seen favorably by God so he can be saved. He's a great example of how religion can be warped into a toxic weapon to justify atrocities. When Frollo finds himself attracted to Esmeralda, a woman whose people he hates and hopes to eradicate. He knows that his desire for her is sinful, but his hypocrisy really pops off when he decides that it would be okay if she was willing to be with him. For some reason, Esmeralda doesn't find him appealing, and so Frollo concludes that she deserves to be burned at the stake. What a swell guy. Frollo is making my top 10 because he's much more realistic than other antagonists in Disney, and that makes him especially scary. He has a strong design and a great voice performance done by Tony Jay. We all know that Hellfire absolutely bangs. It's still a bit shocking that a villain like this exists within the Disney canon, but I'm personally pretty glad about it. For someone that cared so much about getting into heaven, Frollo fumbles the bag pretty hard. The visual of him plummeting to his death in a fiery hell-like inferno is perfect and ironic. No doubt that's exactly what's awaiting him in the afterlife. Lady Tremaine doesn't have any powers or grand goals of world domination, therefore it seems like she might be lame or boring, but on the contrary, her ordinariness elevates everything about her. Her commanding, terrifying presence is all the more impressive knowing that she's just some lady. It's never explored too much why Lady Tremaine is so cruel to Cinderella, but it doesn't really matter why. This is how she is, and so she's the reason Cinderella's life sucks so much. When Lady Tremaine orders Cinderella around, wielding her authority over her in harsh, clipped tones, I shudder.
It seems we have time on our hands.
But I was only trying to—
Silence!
Eleanor Audley provided her voice, and she's a massive reason why the character is so effective. Her voice is relatively calm, but there's a threatening power in it. Some may argue that Lady Tremaine gets let off the hook a bit too easily at the end of the movie, but I think it's perfect. Watching her smugness turn to pure horror as Cinderella reveals the other glass slipper is priceless. For her, this is the worst outcome imaginable, and so I think it's an entirely fitting ending for the movie. Every great underdog story needs a strong antagonist, and for Cinderella, I couldn't imagine one better than Lady Tremaine. Mother Gothel is one of the most complex Disney villains we've ever gotten. She desires to stay young so badly that she robs the king and queen of their child and then also has to become that child's parent. I often wonder about how Gothel really feels about Rapunzel. First and foremost, Rapunzel is a tool that allows her to stay young. I think it's fair to say that she definitely cares about Rapunzel as a daughter, but the nature of their relationship could never allow for genuine love. The lies and emotional abuse are too great. Gothel has two songs entangled, Mother Knows Best and the Mother Knows Best reprise, aka the gaslighting anthems. I especially love the reprise. Gothel just digs into Rapunzel unnecessarily hard. It's terrible, but it makes for some delicious content.
Likes you please, Rapunzel, that's demented.
Any shred of humanity Mother Gothel has goes out the window at the end of the movie when she captures Rapunzel and stabs Flynn.
You want me to be the bad guy? Fine.
Now I'm the bad guy.
But she gets what's coming to her. Rapunzel's really gonna have years of trauma to work through. I hope Corona has a good therapist on hand. Mother Gothel has a marvelous design, and Donna Murphy puts in an exquisite voice performance as well. Her delivery on the dialogue is fantastic, but she also knocks the singing out of the park. Mother Gothel made some fatal flaws, like not relocating further away from the kingdom and telling Rapunzel her real birthday, but I have to hand it to her. She's a huge part of why Tangled is just so good. The best part about Hades is that he's a highly charismatic and comical villain, and yet he can still turn on a frightening persona and poses a true threat for the story. He's a scene stealer whenever he's on screen, and he helps to make Hercules as a movie quite memorable. Hades is god of the underworld, but he's not content with that fate which Zeus bestowed on him, so he comes up with a plan to change that. This scheme will take 18 years to come to fruition, and I have to say, I admire the patience. My favorite thing is probably the interactions between Hades and Megara. It's such an interesting dynamic to watch play out. Hades as a character is pretty intelligent and insightful, and he does a great job of reading both Hercules and Megara and using them against each other. The climax of the film with the Titans is awesome, even if it's short-lived, and Hades getting stuck in the river Styx is a fitting conclusion. His blue fire hair is iconic, and I enjoy the way his emotions can alter the level of fire on him. I'm really not a fan of James Woods as a person, but I have to hand it to him, his voice work as Hades is just phenomenal. He brings the character to life with so much villainous charm and personality. You almost forget you're supposed to be rooting against him. Hades was outcasted by Zeus, and so it makes a lot of sense why he wants to change his situation and gain some power. He walks the line between comic relief and villainy perfectly to create a wonderful balance, and he's easily one of the best parts of watching Hercules. Any of the top 4 could make a case for number 1, and that's simply a testament to how good Disney animation is at creating incredible villains. With Ursula, I have to start with her design. The purple, half-human, half-octopus look is stupendous, and her facial features are so striking and expressive. Animators took inspiration from the drag queen Divine for Ursula's look, and it really worked. Pat Carroll was the incredible voice talent that brought Ursula to life. Her voice continues to surprise me even after all these years simply from how dynamic it is. Her lower register is insane.
Yes, hurry home, princess.
And nobody did an evil laugh like her. Pat just recently passed away at the age of 95, and she will certainly be missed. Ursula is fascinating because she's actually fairly transparent about everything that's going on, most notably during Poor Unfortunate Souls, but she does it in such a way that skirts any blame from her and makes her seem more trustworthy. She's a master manipulator, and it's quite fun to watch. There's some interesting history that's only briefly mentioned about how Ursula used to live at the palace. I'd really like to know more about that, but for the movie, it just adds another layer to the already juicy conflict. Ursula has a pretty brutal death, but the climax sequence is awesome while it lasts. Her lair is cool and frightening, she has a memorable song, creepy sidekicks, and a crazy strong presence as the villain in The Little Mermaid. It's my favorite Disney movie, and she's a big part of what makes it perfect to me. As far as I'm concerned, Ursula will always be in the conversation for Disney's best villains. It's safe to say that the OG Disney villain is still one of the best. The Evil Queen honestly isn't anything too out of the ordinary, but I think that it's in her simplicity that she shines. She's so regal and intimidating, and her motive to be the fairest in the land is so uncomplicated compared to some of the other villains' elaborate schemes. I can remember so clearly being a young kid and being too terrified to watch the opening scene of Snow White. Now I just revel in it. All of her scenes throughout the movie are delectable and feel like a treat to watch. The transformation scene is definitely the highlight. I do prefer her original form, but the old hag is delightfully creepy and iconic in her own right. It sort of feels like the queen gets a personality transplant along with her new appearance, but I'm glad that she has fun hamming it up in her new role.
Thirsty? Have a drink.
I love the irony of her willing to be temporarily ugly to achieve the goal of being the most beautiful. There's also the question of why she doesn't just kill Snow White rather than cast this spell that could potentially be undone. But I'm not complaining because the poison apple is a fairy tale staple. It wouldn't be Snow White without it. The regal purple robes, flowing cape, and balaclava all contribute to her immaculate design. Her image is so classic. Lucille Laverne did a masterful job providing a voice that is both scary and majestic, and then showed us a less reserved side for the old hag. The evil queen may have lost her life in pursuit of being the fairest in the land, but she'll forever hold a place as one of the finest villains Disney animation has ever seen. Sometimes I shock myself by not having this absolute legend in the top spot. She's completely deserving of it. I just have another villain that appeals to me a slight bit more. But man, where do I even start with Maleficent? She's evil. She's just pure evil for the sake of it. No overarching goal, no complicated scheme, and that's such a huge part of her brilliance. Most great villains are great because they have motives we can understand, and maybe we'd even root for them if their methods weren't so deplorable. But Maleficent? She's just here to be petty and cause chaos. She rolls up to Aurora's christening and puts a curse on the infant princess simply because she wasn't invited. Of course, being pure evil alone isn't enough to make a phenomenal character, so Maleficent backs it up with a magnificent design and an impeccable voice. I could go on and on and on about the sheer brilliance of Eleanor Audley, but her voice can speak for itself. One of the things that makes Maleficent so scary is her air of calmness. She typically speaks at an even tone and walks slowly. Something about that makes my skin crawl. And then when she does let out a louder emotion, it's far more effective than it would be if she went around yelling on the regular. Maleficent's design is one for the ages. Mark Davis was a genius for his work on the character. Her green and purple color scheme is great, but it's her horns that really make a lasting impression. She also has an amazing fortress in the Forbidden Mountains that suits her almost too well. Oh yeah, and she turns into a dragon. This sequence is one of Disney's most iconic, legendary villain showdowns, and it's a treat to watch every time.
Now shall you deal with me, O Prince, and all the powers of hell!
To me, Scar is the best combination of evil and charismatic. Despite his dark motives, he's an appealing character due to his intelligence, self-awareness, and even flamboyance at times. Even though I hate what he does, I can't help but feel drawn in by him. And as far as Disney villains go, I know Maleficent is evil personified, but Scar is the only one who kills his own flesh and blood. This shows the audience that the stakes are real and they are high. Scar is an expert manipulator with Simba and a shockingly good actor when need be. His design is god tier level good. The way he foils Mufasa not only in personality but in appearance is excellent. I love that his mane is black and his eyes are green. They're so piercing and expressive. And that Scar is just the cherry on top. Jeremy Irons was the perfect vocal choice to bring this lion to life. He has such a dynamic voice that's able to be both theatrical and menacing. Scar's song Be Prepared is my favorite Disney villain song. I think it's a little underappreciated, to be honest. I enjoy the way the song builds with the hyenas providing backing vocals. The lyrical content is so delicious and the vocal is perfect. Shout out to Jim Cummings for helping out after Jeremy wrecked his voice. I love the visuals in the final showdown of Scar and Simba bitch slapping each other surrounded by the blazing flames. It was a great touch how Scar and Simba end up as the mirror image of Scar and Mufasa, only this time Simba gets to discover the truth and pulls a 180, calling out Scar as the murderer he is. As much as I love Scar as a character, he's an awful guy and deserved exactly what he got. But I'm grateful for the role he plays in one of the most beloved and timeless films Walt Disney Animation has ever produced. Long live the King. And that's the list. Thank you so much for joining me on this ranking of my top 10 Disney villains. I'm happy with my list, but as I mentioned near the beginning, there are just so many wonderful Disney villains, and narrowing the list to 10 was nearly an impossible task. Again, I'd love it if you shared your own favorite villains in the comments down below. Feel free to leave any suggestions you'd like to see for future rankings as well. If you liked this video, consider hitting like and subscribe, and head over to the Trove to find more rankings, trivia, and video essays. I'll have links to playlists in the description down below, and you can expect more fun Disney related content like this coming soon. Thanks again for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.